Hi class, today I am reviewing trig ratios with y'all. So first thing we need to know, right angle is a 90-degree angle. So if I come over to my triangle, you can always know the 90-degree angle or the right angle has the little square inside of it. The hypotenuse is the longest side of a right triangle. And the way you can always find it is it's always going to be opposite the right angle. So if I come over to my right angle, I can draw an arrow to the opposite end, and that right there is my hypotenuse. All right, next thing we need to know is the theta. The theta is just this symbol right here, and it is just a variable used for angles. So here where it has this theta, that's just the angle that we're going to be using in the problem. Okay, once you found your angle, you can draw an arrow to the opposite end, and that opposite side is your opposite. So the opposite is just the side that is opposite end of the theta. Finally, we have the adjacent. Adjacent literally just means next to. So in this case, the adjacent is just the side that is next to the theta. So it's just next to the theta. Okay, so looking at our examples, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to label all my sides. So find the right angle, look to the opposite side. That is my hypotenuse. Next thing, I'm going to label the angle that it gives me with the theta symbol. So in this case, the angle that it is talking about is the y. So that is the angle I'm going to label as the theta. From there, I can draw my arrow to the opposite end, and that is the opposite. And then finally, the remaining one next to theta is the adjacent. So to answer the question, opposite, if I zoom in on my opposite, I see that this green side that I labeled my opposite is connecting vertex B with vertex S. So on my answer choices, I look for the answer choice that connects B with S. All right, let's look at example 2. First, I'm going to label my right angle. Opposite of that is my hypotenuse. Next, I'm going to label the angle that it gives me with the theta. So it gives me angle N, so that's my theta. I'm going to draw an arrow to the opposite end to label my opposite. And finally, the remaining angle that's next to my theta is the adjacent. So this blue line that I labeled adjacent is connecting the N with the T. So this is my answer right here. Okay, once you're comfortable with labeling the sides of the triangle, you are ready for the next page. If you're not comfortable with this yet, do your delta math, the triangles practice. That's going to give you more practice with just this skill right here. But once you have done that section of the delta math, you are ready to know sine, cosine, and tangent. So CAH TOA is just a silly little phrase that we use to help us remember the formulas for sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, so helps us remember the formula for sine. CAH helps us remember the formula for cosine, And TOA helps us remember the formula for tangent. So let's get to the formulas. So sine, the formula is sin theta equals, so the S in the SO is for sine. The O is for opposite. And the H is for hypotenuse. All right, let's do cosine or CA. So the C in CA is for cosine. The A is for adjacent. And the H is for hypotenuse. Okay, finally, TOA. The T is for tangent. The O is for opposite. And the A is for adjacent. So CA, TOA is just to help us remember the formulas for sine, cosine, and tangent. Now, coming down to the example here. Anytime it asks you for the sine, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to write down the formula. Opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Okay, then we look to our triangle to actually fill in the values. So I want to look at this triangle to actually figure out what is the opposite, what is the hypotenuse. So next thing, I'm just going to label my triangle. So first right angle, opposite of that right angle is the hypotenuse. Then I'm going to label my theta. Now, remember, the theta is just the angle that you're focused on for the question. So in A, B, and C, when it's asking you to find sine, cosine, and tangent, in each case, the theta is just O. Okay, so I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to find side O, and that is going to be the theta. Okay, so from that O is where I can draw my arrow across and label the opposite. And finally, the 8 will be the adjacent. Okay, notice when I'm looking at the opposite, there's actually no side length listed for me, right? My hypotenuse I know is 29, my adjacent is 8, but my opposite I don't know, so I'm going to give it an X. And when you are missing one side of a right triangle, but you have the two other sides, you can always find that missing side using the Pythagorean theorem. So right here, I'm just going to write out my Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And when you're using the Pythagorean theorem, the hypotenuse is your C, okay? So the C is always your hypotenuse. Okay, so using my triangle, the hypotenuse is 29, so my C is going to be 29. And then the other two sides will just be my A and B. So I end up with x squared plus 8 squared equals 29 squared. All right, from here, I just need to do some algebra to isolate my x. So I'm going to subtract 8 squared from both sides. That gives me x squared equals 777. Where I got the 777, that's just in my calculator, literally just type in 29 squared minus 8 squared, and it will give you 777. Okay, last step, to fully isolate the x squared, to fully isolate the x, I need to take the square root. Okay, so x is going to be equal to the square root of 777. And now I can come over back to my triangle and label it as 777 for my opposite. All right, and then once I have that, it's just plugging in the numbers. So, oh, sorry. Opposite should be square root of 777. So, opposite, square root of 777. Hypotenuse, 29. Adjacent, 8. Hypotenuse, 29. And then for tangent, we have opposite over adjacent. So we have square root of 777 over 8. Okay, almost done. One more example I want you to try on your own. Pause, and then hit play once you've tried it on your own. Okay, first I'm going to label my triangle. When I'm deciding which angle should be the theta, I look over to my problem. Since the angle that it's referencing each time is x, that x is going to be my theta. Notice here there weren't any missing sides, so that's why I didn't have to use Pythagorean theorem. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So for my triangle, it's going to be 12 over 13. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so it's going to be 5 over 13. And tangent is going to be opposite over adjacent, so it's 12 over 5. All right, y'all, that is it for this lesson. I hope that this was helpful. Good luck studying. And really, you guys, the best way to practice this is to just do problems over and over again. So, again, if you haven't, do your delta math. Okay, the more you do it, the easier it will get. Love you. Bye.